Honorable members, prayers. Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and our good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, I have not received any message from His Excellency the President, and so we'll proceed to item 3 on the order paper. Formal communication by the Speaker. Today, I'll use that opportunity to give my ruling on the matter pending before the House, the issue of vacation of seat by a number of members of Parliament, but specifically in reference to the objection that was raised by the Leader of the House. So, honorable members, as you may recall, during the last sitting of the second meeting of the second session, that is, on the 28th day of July 2022, the Honorable Oseche Mensah Bonsu, the Member of Parliament for Swami constituency, the Majority Leader, and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, raised a preliminary objection as to the listing of one motion on the order paper of 28th July 2022. The said motion was for the adoption of the report of the Committee on Privileges on the alleged breach of Article 97(1)(c) of the Constitution of the Republic. The Majority Leader took the view that the motion should not have been listed on the order paper, and thus same should be withdrawn. His submission was that the determination of the committee was conclusive and same should not be subjected to the House at plenary for a debate and determination. To quote him, and I quote, "The Privileges Committee has presented its report, and in my considered opinion, based on the Constitution and not sentiments, is that there should be that automaticity once the committee makes a determination. I disagree that the decision should be taken by the House," unquote. The Minority Leader, the Honorable Member for Tamal South, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, dissented and submitted that any other committee of the House, the Privileges Committee's report should be subject, like any other committee of the House, the Privileges Committee's report should be subjected to the plenary for a debate in consonance with Order 164 of the Standing Orders of Parliament, which mandates the committee to, quote, recommend, unquote, its findings to the House, which shall be put to a vote. The Minority Leader noted that it was appropriate for the report to be captured on the order paper for consideration by the House. He stated further that there were precedents on this matter and referred the House to the case of the former Member of Parliament, Mr. Eric Amwaten. After hearing both the Honorable Majority Leader and the Honorable Minority Leader and some other members of Parliament, I indicated that due to the gravity of the issues raised on the matter, I require some time to provide a reasoned ruling. I accordingly deferred my ruling on the matter to this meeting. It is against this backdrop that I am giving this ruling to give clarity to the matters in contention and to ensure that progress is made on this matter. The issues raised by the Honorable Majority Leader with respect to the listing of the motion are critical. They are very critical issues of public interest, and I deem it my sacred constitutional duty as the Speaker of the House to provide clarity and bring certainty to bear on this matter in accordance with the Constitution and the standing orders of the House. The decision on whether or not a seat is vacant is one that must be carefully considered, and one for which our Constitution, our courts, and the rules and best practices of other parliaments have provided significant guidance. Our job as a House will not be to usurp the functions of any of the arms of government, but simply to apply the law faithfully and in accordance with the dictates of the Constitution of Ghana, 1992. In view of the antecedents of the objection raised by the Honourable Majority Leader, it is necessary to recount the facts of the matter before us. from its inception up to and including the stage it has reached before the House. On the 5th of April, 2022, on the conclusion of an attendance audit by the Table Office based on a number of petitions, I referred 3 members of Parliament to a Committee of Privileges for their failure to attend Parliament without the permission in writing of the Speaker for 15 sitting days in a meeting. The members were the Honorable Kennedy Ohene Ajepong, MP for Asin Central, Honorable Henry Korti, MP for Ayaoso Central, and Honorable Sarah Ajua Safo, MP for Dome Kwabinya. Pursuant to Article 97(1)(c) of the Constitution, the mandate of the committee involves a determination of facts as to whether the 3 members absented themselves from attendance of Parliament for 15 sitting days, and if so, whether the absence from the 15 days was based on a permission in writing of the Speaker, and in that case, the absence, if not based on such permission, whether the 3 honorable members have reasonable explanations for so absent themselves from those sittings of Parliament. Out of the abundance of caution, it is important to reproduce the constitutional and subsidiary rules that govern how this House must act when the member has absented him or herself from Parliament for 15 sitting days. And I'll start by quoting Clause 1 of Article 97, which provides as follows. 97(1)(c). A member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament if he is absent without the permission in writing of the Speaker, and he is unable to offer a reasonable explanation to the Parliamentary Committee on Privileges from 15 sittings of a meeting of Parliament during any period that Parliament has been summoned to meet and continues to meet. This provision is not new to our jurisprudence. It started during the Nkrumah era, but differently captured in the constitutions. And people will recall the story of a number of MPs that by virtue of fear left the country but were receiving their salaries for 2 years, and the issue was raised. And that is what led to the initiation of this whole provision. I'm sure when you read the history, you know the names of the MPs. I won't tell you today. Anybody who wants it can see me in chambers. That time it was 20 days in a session. It was later reduced to 15 days, and they said 15 consecutive days. The 1992 Constitution decided to reduce it further. They took away the consecutive and made it 15 days. This time not in a session, but in a meeting. So there's vast difference. The Constitution also was not using the word vacate. The Constitution was using the word cease to be. This should not be lost on any person when you are analyzing this article. Honorable members, this is, in my humble opinion, a very straightforward provision. It states that if 3 events occur, an MP must vacate his or her seat. These are: 1, unpermitted absence; 2, from 15 sittings in the meeting; 3, inability to provide a reasonable explanation to the Parliamentary Committee on Privileges. It is evident from the wording of the article that this is a conjunctive article. This means all 3 events must be established for an MP to vacate his or her seat. 3, the constitutional provision is supplemented, however, by Order 16.1 of the Standing Orders of Parliament. With your kind permission, I quote 16.1. A member shall not absent himself during a meeting for more than 15 sittings without the permission in writing of the Speaker. Any member infringing this order shall have his conduct referred to the Privileges Committee, unquote. Furthermore, Order 18 of the Standing Orders provides the seat of a member shall be declared vacant by Mr. Speaker under Clause 1B to H of Article 97 of the Constitution, unquote. Honorable members, there is a school of thought that holds the view that once a member of Parliament has been found to have been absent from Parliament for 15 sitting days without the permission of the Speaker, the seat of that member is vacant. This view found expression in the submissions of a number of members of Parliament of this Parliament on this matter. I totally disagree with this school of thought because it is based on a partial reading of the text of the Constitution as contained in Article 97(1)(c), and I referred to you the 3 ingredients. Read as a whole, Article 97(1)(c) contemplates that a seat of a member which has been determined, for example, through an audit of the attendance book by the table office, or a member or any other person to have been unoccupied by the absence from Parliament of an incumbent MP for 15 sitting days without the permission in writing of the Speaker may still be saved if that member provides a reasonable explanation to the Committee on Privileges. The findings of fact and evidence, as well as the recommendations of the committee, are then presented to the House of Parliament for its consideration. The order, mode, and authority for the presentation of business and of the report of the committee to the House is by a motion or a paper to be moved or presented usually by the chairman of the committee, a member of the committee, or as otherwise agreed to by the House See Standing Orders 53, 54, 160, and 161. Item 55 on the order paper of Thursday, 28 July 2022 read as follows, and I quote, that this Honorable House adopts the report of the Committee of Privileges on the alleged breach of Article 97(1)(c) of the 1992 Constitution and Order 16(1) of the Standing Orders of Parliament by 3 members of Parliament during the first meeting of the second session of the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic of Ghana, unquote. And under it was chairman of the committee, which meant the chairman was called upon to move that motion. As captured in the introductory paragraphs of this ruling, the Honorable Majority Leader raised an objection to the listing of the said item. He alluded, in addition to what has been captured above, that the motion ought not to have been listed on the order paper, as the information that came from the Committee of Privileges should have been submitted as a paper. He argued further that the matter in issue should not be the subject matter of a motion, as it does not require the approval of Parliament. The Honourable Majority Leader added that once the Committee of Privileges made a determination as to the reasonableness or otherwise of the excuse provided by the Honourable Members of Parliament for their absence, an automatic determination was made as to the vacancy of the seat in question, and that the House as a whole had no role to play. The Majority Leader relied on some provisions in the Constitution where the work of the Committee of Parliament was not subject to consideration of the House. According to him, in those instances, upon the conclusion of the work of the committee, this House becomes functus officio. The Honourable Majority Leader cited, among others, the role that the Committee on Finance plays when the committee authorizes the withdrawal of funds from the contingency fund, and I quote, whenever that committee is satisfied that there has arisen an urgent or unforeseen need for expenditure for which no other provision exists to meet the need, unquote. See Article 171(1) of the Constitution. For purposes of emphasis, the Honourable Minority Leader argued in favour of the listing of the motion. In the view of the Minority Leader, based on the precedents of the House, rather than argue against the listing of the motion, the appropriate step to take was for the Majority Leader to request the Speaker to call on the Chairman of the committee to move the motion on the floor, since the matter had been referred to the committee and the committee has submitted its report to the House. The Minority Leader also relied on the statement in the judgment of the Court of Appeal in the case of Professor Stephen Kweku Asare versus the Attorney General and 3 others. Unreported 2008, suit number H1/65/07, Court of Appeal. He quoted that, I quote, the Speaker referred the letter to the Parliamentary Committee on Privileges, which met on 22nd February 2006 and recommended to the House of Parliament on 2nd March 2006, unquote. The Honourable Minority Leader took the position that any recommendation from the Committee of Privileges must be subjected to the same threshold as held to the same standard as was done in the case of the former Member of Parliament for Nkranza North, Mr. Eric Amwate. The reply of the Majority Leader to the above submission of the Minority Leader is that the procedure adopted by the House in the Eric Amwate's case is a bad precedent, and same should not be followed by this House. From the foregoing summary of the preliminary objection of the Honorable Majority Leader and the response to the objection by the Honorable Minority Leader, I can see clearly that two pertinent issues have been raised for my determination. These are: one, whether the motion advertised as item 55 on the order paper ought not to have been admitted and listed as a motion, but as a paper for the information of the House. And two, whether this House has power to consider and adopt the report of the Committee on Privileges on this matter. Honorable members, you may recall that I delivered a ruling dated 20th January 2021, which dealt with the competence and admissibility of motions. In that ruling, I noted that the admissibility or otherwise of a motion for listing on the order paper was the exclusive preserve of the Speaker. My power to admit motions is provided for under Orders 78 and 79(4) of the Standing Orders as follows. (78) Unless any order otherwise provides, notice shall be given of any motion which is proposed to make, except the following: A motion relating to contempt of Parliament. B, a motion for the adjournment of the House or of a debate. C, a motion that a petition be read, printed, or referred to a select or standing committee. D, a motion to amend a motion of which no notice is required or which is debated 24 hours after notice has been given. E, a motion that a member be no longer heard. F, a motion for the reference of a bill to a committee. G, a motion for the third reading of a bill. H, a motion for the withdrawal of a bill. I, a motion for the withdrawal of a motion. J, a motion for the election of a member to preside in the House. And K, any motion, the agency of which is admitted by Mr. Speaker. Honorable members, Order 79(4) reads as follows: every notice shall be submitted to Mr. Speaker, who shall direct that it be printed in its original form or with such amendments as he shall direct, or that it be returned to the member submitting it as being inadmissible. Unquote. It is clear from the above provisions that the power to admit a motion is vested exclusively in the Speaker. It is tried knowledge that the exercise of that power by the Speaker is not subject to challenge except by a substantive motion. You can see Order 98 of the Standing Orders of Parliament and go through the usual practice of the House. A mere objection without notice on the floor of this House is not a sufficient basis to overturn the decision to admit a motion such as the motion advertised as item numbered 55 on the order paper of 28th July 2022. Be that as it may, the Honorable Majority Leader's objection seeks to question the propriety of the decision to admit the motion number 55 on the said order paper. As defined in Order 7 of the Standing Orders, a motion, and I quote, means a proposal made by a member that Parliament or a committee thereof do something, order something to be done, or express an opinion concerning some matter, unquote. In simple terms, and in accordance with accepted practice and conventions of this House, a motion is a mechanism for decision-making by the House because it sets in motion the process for arriving at a decision. Such a motion may be admitted by the Speaker to be moved if before the commencement of the sitting, the member submits to the Speaker a written notification of the matter to be raised. When the Speaker determines that a motion or a specific matter be moved, such a motion would be considered admitted and the member shall be allowed to move the motion accordingly. The Honorable Majority Leader further submitted forcefully that the motion listed as number 55 on the order paper is incompetent and ought to have been laid in the form of a paper for the information of the House. Implicit in this argument is the notion that when the report of a committee is laid as a paper, then its content is determinative, and that this House cannot purport to take any further action on it by way of a debate and vote. This dichotomy that the Honorable Majority Leader sought to draw between a paper and a motion is, with all due respect, a false dichotomy. It is a comparison that does not yield accurate analytical outcomes. And I will proceed to demonstrate why this is so. The standing orders of this House provide for the presentation of papers. In terms of Order 74, papers may be presented only by the Speaker, the chairman of a committee, a member, or a minister. The mode of presentation of papers is governed by Order 75, which provides, among others, that, and I quote, 1. As soon as sufficient copies of a paper for distribution to members have been received in the office of the clerk, notice of the presentation of that paper may be placed on the order paper. And as soon as Mr. Speaker announces papers for presentation, the paper shall be deemed to have been laid on the table. 2, if so desired by the person presenting a paper, a short explanatory statement may be made by him upon its presentation, unquote. The tenor of the provisions on the presentation of papers suggests to me that the latitude of action regarding deliberation, debate, and decision is extremely restricted when papers are laid. However, it does not mean, as the Majority Leader sought to imply, that this House cannot take steps to adopt or approve such a paper by motion. As a matter of practice and convention of some parliaments, papers are laid for the information of the House and may not be the subject matter of deliberation, debate, and decision. But a paper that is in the form of a report of a committee of this House may be laid and debated using the method of a motion, save expressly and specifically accepted by law. This position is buttressed by the requirements of standing orders of this House, particularly Order 161, which stipulates that recommendations of a committee be presented in the House in the form of a report, and that, quote, at any time after the report has been presented to the House, a motion may be moved by the chairman of the committee for the acceptance of the report, unquote. See paragraph 2, order 161. This provision would definitely be rendered inutile if we were to accept the position adumbrated by the Honorable Majority Leader. Moreover, Presidents from other jurisdictions support the view that I have taken of this matter. For instance, you can read a publication of the Parliament of Australia titled House of Representatives Practice 7th edition, relating to the committee of that house known as the Committee of Privileges and Members' Interests. And that report details the practice following the laying of a report of the committee as follows, and I quote, on presentation of the committee's report to the House by the chair, the practice is for the report to be ordered to be made a parliamentary paper. The House may then order that it be taken into consideration at the next sitting or on a specified day. A motion or motions may be moved declaratory of the House's view on the committee's report and recommendations and in respect of the House's proposed action, unquote. Also referred to the practice on this matter in New Zealand, India, particularly the Lok Sabha, United Kingdom, look at the rules of the House of Commons, Canada, and the United States of America. I've taken the trouble to go through all these rules. Having disposed of the question whether the report of the Committee on Privileges ought to have come by way of a motion or whether it ought to have been laid as a paper, I will now turn my attention to the substantive issue of whether the House sitting in plenary can consider the report of the committee for purposes of its adoption. Honorable members, you may recall that in my former statement on matters relating to the vacancy of the seat of a member of Parliament for reason of absence from Parliament, I provided a context on how the House ought to proceed on the matter of absenteeism and what steps should be taken in that respect. After a careful review of the constitutional provisions, outstanding orders, the case law, and the rules and practice of other parliaments around the world on a matter of absenteeism of a member of Parliament for sittings of Parliament, I noted that a member or any person would be stopped from raising an issue of absenteeism after the meeting, and thus a member of Parliament or any person that desirous of doing the same must act timeously during the course of the meeting that the member is alleged to have absented himself from the sittings. I also noted that the combined effect of our Constitution, standing orders, and case law provides a certain process to be followed when it comes to a notice of the House that a member had absented himself or herself from the sittings of Parliament in a manner that is inconsistent with the letter and spirit of Article 97(1)(c) of the 1992 Constitution. For the avoidance of doubt, I reiterate what I highlighted in that statement, and I particularly will refer to paragraph 19 of the statement, and it reads as follows. 19. In the light of the combined reading of the provisions in the Constitution and the standing orders above, coupled with a decision of the Court of Appeal on the question of when a seat of a member of Parliament is vacant by reason of absenteeism, the following processes should be complied with. 1. the member must have been absent from a meeting for 15 sittings in that meeting without the permission of the Speaker in writing, based on the evidence from the votes and proceedings of Parliament. 2. The fact of the absence of the member without permission of the Speaker may be raised on the floor of Parliament by a member, and the matter referred to a committee of privileges for consideration and report to the House. 3. The members so referred shall be required to offer an explanation for the absence to the Committee of Privileges, which shall consider whether the explanation is reasonable. 4. The Committee of Privileges, after consideration, shall recommend to the House such action as the committee may consider appropriate. 5. The House shall vote on the recommendation of the committee, where in the event that the committee's recommendation to the House is to the effect that the member's explanation is reasonable, and the House adopts that recommendation, the member's seat shall not be declared vacant. Where in the event that the committee's recommendation to the House is to the effect that the member's explanation is unreasonable, and the House adopts that recommendation, the member's seat shall be declared vacant by Mr. Speaker. Where Mr. Speaker has declared a seat vacant by reason of absenteeism, the Clerk to Parliament shall, within 7 days of the declaration, notify the Electoral Commission for the necessary processes for a by-election to commence, unquote. Having regard to the process outlined above, the Committee of Privileges considered the matter of absenteeism involving the 3 members who had absented themselves from sittings of the House in a meeting without the permission in writing of the Speaker. I will give a fuller explanation of the role each of the actors plays in this matter, only if necessary, at the conclusion of this matter. Suffice for this purpose to restrict myself to the role of the Committee of Privileges. The committee has a singular mandate in respect of these matters, and that is to establish that the member absented him or herself from the sitting of Parliament for 15 days in a meeting without the permission of the Speaker in writing, require into the reasonableness, I should say inquire, not require, inquire into the reasonableness or otherwise of the explanation offered by the affected member or members, and to report to the House. Order 7 defines a standing committee, like the Committee of Privileges, as a committee appointed under Article 1031 of the Constitution to inquire into and report on such matters as may be referred to it from time to time or on a continuous basis for the declaration of Parliament. The Committee of Privileges is a committee of Parliament constituted pursuant to Article 103 of the Constitution. As a committee of Parliament, the way in which the committee conducts itself is regulated by the standing orders of the House. It is provided by Article 1101 of the Constitution 1992 that, and I quote, subject to the provisions of the Constitution, Parliament may, by standing orders, regulate its own proceedings, unquote. Article 97(1)(c) stipulates the conditions under which the seat of a member of Parliament may be vacant. Put differently, once the member has A, been absent from Parliament for 15 sittings of a meeting of Parliament, B, not obtained the permission of Mr. Speaker in writing to be absent, and C, cannot offer a reasonable explanation to the Parliamentary Committee on Privileges, the member automatically vacates the seat. This is the position that was endorsed in the case of Professor Stephen Kweku Asare versus the Attorney General and 3 others, unreported 2008 Court of Appeal. And I want to quote what they said. The plaintiff appellant, here thereafter referred to as the appellant, contends that once a member absents himself from Parliament without explanation for more than 15 sittings in this case, that member's seat automatically becomes vacant by operation of law. This argument is sound in law and are accepted, unquote. On the other hand, Order 161 of the Standing Orders provides: 1. The recommendations of a report of committee shall be presented to the House in the form of a report. 2. At any time after the report has been presented to the House, a motion may be moved by the chairman of the committee for the acceptance of the report. Our orders specifically require that the recommendations of a committee must be subject to the consideration of the House, and that the plenary plays an important role in choosing to adopt or reject the recommendations. The rationale for this structure is that committees of Parliament are macrocosms and extensions of the House as a whole. They are handmaidens whose core constitutional function is to assist Parliament, in the language of Article 1031 of the Constitution, in, I quote, the effective discharge of its functions, unquote. There are, however, a few exceptions to this general rule. As noted by the Majority Leader, Articles 106(13), and that's clause 13, and 177 provide instances where the Committee of Parliament's work operates to automatically bind the House, and no consideration whatsoever is required by the plenary in these matters. May I add that it is also the case with the recommendations of the Committee of Members holding office of profit. In such instances, the Constitution specifically says so. Very clearly stated in the Constitution. Most parliamentary decisions are made by the House acting on the recommendations of one of its committees. It does not follow that all decisions in Parliament must be done that way. Where the Constitution itself specifies a particular process for deciding, then it is that process that must be followed. This is because general things do not derogate from special things. However, in contrast with these instances cited, there's nothing, and I mean nothing, expressly stated or necessarily implied in Article 97(1)(c) to the effect that the conclusion of the work of the Committee of Privileges also concludes the matter, and no action may be taken by the House on the findings and recommendations of the committee. Furthermore, the instances cited are not referrals from the House to the Committee of the House. Article 177, for instance, indicates that the advances from the contingency fund may be authorized by the Committee for Finance once the committee is satisfied that there has arisen an urgent or unforeseen need for expenditure for which no other provision exists to meet the need. The plenary in this case is not seized with jurisdiction to make a reference or determination on the decision of the Committee for Finance. In fact, the Constitution says the committee in charge of financial matters. The distinction between this provision and Article 97(1)(c) is that In the case of the former, no reference is made by the House in any way to the Committee for Finance. The minister responsible for finance in making a request for an advance from the contingency fund is not required to come to the House, but can submit his request to the Committee for Finance. The House plays no role in the process. The Constitution mandates the Minister of Finance, after the authorization of the Committee of Finance, to as soon as possible present a supplementary estimate for the purpose of replacing the amount so advanced. That's what is stated in the Constitution. And that is very different from the position in Article 97(1)(c). On the contrary, in relation to the matter before us, the absenteeism of the 3 members is referred to the committee in accordance with Article 97(1)(c), after the allegation that the members were absent for 15 days without permission in writing by the Speaker. A committee of the House is then called upon to inquire into the allegations and report to the House for a decision. I find the position canvassed strongly by the Majority Leader as untenable, for the simple reason that where the framers of the Constitution intended that the committee be clothed with exclusive jurisdiction on a matter without reference to the House, it has expressly, as in the case of Article 106(13) and 177, indicated so within the text of the Constitution. To the extent that a similar express mandate is not conferred on the Privileges Committee in respect of matters arising under Article 97(1)(c), Parliament's procedure with respect to the committees must of necessity apply. To imply any mandate into Article 97(1)(c) is one I am not prepared to do. Pursuant to Article 110 of the Constitution, my understanding is that when the Constitution does not provide a procedure, Parliament may regulate the procedure within that space as long as it does not offend the Constitution. It is in accordance with this power that Parliament captured the dictates of Article 71(c) in Order 16(1), which is to the effect that once a member is alleged to be in breach of the provision, his conduct is referred to the Committee of Privileges for inquiry. For the purpose of reiterating my humble view, once a referral has been made, therefore, the report of the committee does not complete the inquiry into the matter. The report of the Committee of Privileges, just like any other committee, is subject to the consideration of the House by way of a motion. Again, I am inspired and convinced this position of the law by the provision of the Constitution, rules of procedure and practice of the United Kingdom, India, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. In conclusion, honorable members, as I have noted in this ruling, the decision as to whether or not to admit a motion is the exclusive preserve of the Speaker. In view of the foregoing, the House is well within its rights to receive and consider the report of the committee and make a determination arising out of the recommendations. In the circumstances, it is my ruling that the motion was rightfully admitted and the report of the committee is subject to the consideration of the House. It goes without saying that the preliminary objection of the majority leader to the admissibility of the motion for consideration of the report of the committee is hereby dismissed in limine. Honourable members, I did indicate that I will give my understanding at the end of the debate on this matter, and I'll give you copious referral notes on this issue. It's my humble view that even what the table office does in trying to compute the days that a member absents himself is not final. It's for the committee to investigate and establish the facts. Again, the fact that the speaker or is alleged that the speaker has not given permission in writing is also not final. Evidence must be produced before the committee. And the last thing is for the committee. The fact that the committee says, oh, this reason is reasonable, this reason is not reasonable, is not also final. It's for the House that will go through it, because the mandate given to an MP representation is so crucial that it cannot be left to the subjective view of any person or group of people, but the whole House. Please, honourable members, table office will accordingly list the motion, and this House will continue to deliberate and debate on it and take a final decision. I so rule. I recognize the majority leader. I see he's on his feet.
We are the complainer, all of us.
Speaker, thank you very much for your expressing what you indicated was going to be a ruling which you characterized as an informed ruling. You have sent us on a very labyrinthine, tortuous and torturous journey. And clearly, I must state that I didn't know where you were taking this House. Mr. Speaker, by way of conclusion, you said the House should go through the recommendations of the committee. in order to make a determination. I refer you to what you said earlier, that the House will not go through
Honorable
the motion.
Majority Leader, my ruling is not subject to debate. You can say you disagree with me.
Yes.
And you know what to do. Simple. You cannot go and be quoting my ruling and trying to state your position on that. That definitely is not allowed by our rules.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you have read your ruling, which I consider very...
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, yes, you will not listen to me. You will not listen to me. I've had the patience to listen to you. You must also listen to me. Mr. Speaker, you have made a ruling which I totally disagree with. I totally disagree with. I think it doesn't sit with the Constitution, and we must be able to comment.
Honorable members, the Majority Leader is entitled to totally disagree with me. So allow him to say it, and then he knows what to do. So yes, go on.
Precisely. Yes, we gotta know what to do. And I'm expressing my discomfort with this unfortunate ruling that you have made. I totally disagree. I think it doesn't sit with the Constitution and with your own earlier statement that you made in this House relating to this same thing. Very inconsistent. To that extent, Mr. Speaker, I'm serving notice. We know what to do. We come with a substantive motion to challenge your ruling, which I find very obsequious. Very obsequious. And it doesn't sit in this House. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Honorable Majority Leader. Honorable Majority Leader, as I stated earlier on, you are totally entitled to disagree with me. But to describe my ruling as unfortunate is a choice of word that by our rules. Read Order 93. Read Order 93. The fact that you disagree with me does not mean that your disagreement is sacrosanct. I will never use the words unfortunate on your disagreement. I believe that that word offends against the Order 93, and I'll ask you to withdraw that word and apologize to me.
Mr. Speaker, is it the first time the word unfortunate has been used in this House? Or you want to reset the rules of this House? When I say that this statement is unfortunate, that is offensive. With the greatest respect, Mr. Speaker, I want you to indicate to me in the context what is offensive about saying that your ruling I find unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, on almost daily basis, this word has been used in this House. Or is it the case you want to reset the rules of this House? Mr. Speaker, I am not angelic. If you tell me that in the context of usage, I find it maybe unparliamentary and I have to withdraw, I will. But I don't find it, and so I don't find it unparliamentary. But I'm in your hands. I want to listen further to you.
Majority Leader, thank you so much. You recall when you were minority leader and, sorry, you were majority leader and your deputy was Honorable Dominic Nitiwul. I was minority leader and I used the word, after I was majority leader, you were minority leader, I used the word, you don't understand, in trying to explain a matter, and your deputy objected to my choice of the word, you don't understand. That meant it was an insult to your intelligence. The Right Honorable Do Ajahu, who was presiding, called on me to withdraw that apology, and I did. I'm sure you recollect that because you have a sharp memory.
The Speaker, words have meanings in the context of usage. That's why I'm urging you, in the context of usage, what is unparliamentary about me saying that your ruling I find unfortunate?
I only decided to engage with you and give you this latitude because you have been with me for a long time. And when I was leader in 2001, I think you were a deputy whip. And I went around the whole world with you, always leading you. I expected that after now that you have learned so much, you are entitled to always disagree and argue with me. But I'm still older than you. And you always remain my friend until doomsday. Whether you agree or disagree with me, whether you are fighting me or not, you will still remain my friend. With this, we move to item 4. Item 4. Correction of votes and proceedings and official reports. Honorable members, we'll look at the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 25th October 2022. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page, yes, page 9. Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, page 8.
Yes, page 8.
Number 37. Liwal Oscar.
Liwal Oscar.
Yes, I was present yesterday, but my name has been marked absent.
Yes, table office. Please kindly take note. The honorable member for Uyo says he was around yesterday. So we now move to page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings, sorry, Majority Chief, yes?
If you may endure, I tried to catch your attention. Page 16, a business committee meeting. I was present. Just realized that my name is missing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, table office, please cross-check from the reports of the clerk to the committee and do the right thing. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the first sitting held on Tuesday, 25th October 2024, are hereby adopted as the true record of proceedings. Yes, please.
Speaker, we are ready to take item 8. Item 8, at the commencement of public business.
Okay.
Item 8, Speaker.
Honorable members, there is a request from the Majority Chief for us to move straight away to public business. Minority leadership, what do you say to the request?
Item 8.
Mr. Speaker, at the Proceedings, there was this understanding that we could take the Pan-African Parliament and Ecowas Parliament's reports, and then from there we could adjourn. So, Mr. Speaker, it's in line with the discussion held before we came in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, honorable members, at the commencement of public business, item 6, presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented: A, no. We go to which one?
Speaker, with respect, we are taking item 8 on
8.
page 3. Yes.
Straight to item 8. Motion that this Honorable House adopt the report of the representatives of the Parliament of Ghana to the 4th ordinary session of the 5th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament, held from 27th June to 2nd July 2022 in Midrand, South Africa. Leader of the delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, I rise to move that this House...
I hope the second Deputy Speaker is ready to take over the chair. Yes, you can go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that this House adopt the report of the representatives of the Parliament of Ghana to the 4th ordinary session, the 5th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament, held from June 27th to July 2nd, 2022 in Midrand, South Africa. Mr. Speaker, I will make reference to the headlines, and I urge the answer department to incorporate the whole report as same have been read in extenso. The Speaker, in accordance with Article 142 of the Protocol of Treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament, the 4th ordinary session was held on the 4th ordinary session of the 5th Parliament was held from 27 June to 2nd July in Midrand, South Africa. The Speaker, your delegation from Ghana's Parliament is led by my good self, and I am accompanied by Honorable Frank Anadompre, the Majority Chief Whip, Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka, the Minority Chief Whip, Honorable Collins Dowda, and Honorable Ophelia Mensah. The Speaker, along with us was Mr. Eric Osu Mensah, the Acting Deputy Clerk, Finance and Administration. The Speaker, the report has reference to the official opening of the session, the administration of oath taken by new members, addressed by the chairperson of the AU Commission, who oversaw and superintended during the period when a new president was elected. The Speaker, I'll come to the conclusion. In conclusion, the delegation expresses appreciation to the heads of state and government of AU, the Executive Council of AUC, and all who played a role to bring finality to the issue of geographical rotation in the election of members of Pan-African Parliament, the Bureau. It is the expectation of the delegation that Pan-African Parliament will work diligently towards the achievement of the objectives of PAP to sustain its existence. I so move. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Minority Chief Whip. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion, and in doing so, to thank the chair for the presentation to the House. Mr. Speaker, I must admit it did not take the Pan-African Parliament easy to come to this conclusion that the chair just reported, because we've had a terrible challenge in the Pan-African Parliament where we have precedents that are not part of our rules. And because they were not part of our rules, it came to a point where what we usually call rotation in Pan-African Parliament, among the 5 reasons, zones demarcated in Pan-African Parliament for Africa, was not being followed. And it created a huge challenge for us. In Pan-African Parliament, the African continent has been zoned into 5. You have the Northern Caucasus, you have the West African Caucasus, you have the East African Caucasus, the Central African Caucasus, and the Southern Caucasus. And when this parliament was being established way back in 2006, it started with the Central Africa East Africa rep as the president, Madame Mongela, as the president of Pan-African Parliament. Then after she left, even though when she was even going to leave, it came with some rancors. When she left, then it went to Central Africa from Idris Deby from Chad. Then after he departed, it came to West African Caucasus. Honorable Betel Amadi became the president of Pan-African Parliament. Then when he was leaving, his vice president, one of his vice presidents, by name Honorable Nkodo, insisted to take over, but he was from the Central Africa, and that became a big problem. And in so many discussions, it was agreed, even with a resolution, that after that, we'll try and follow the rotation. Unfortunately, when he got his first term and enjoyed sitting as the president of the Pan-African Parliament, he didn't want to go. So he orchestrated a second term for himself. There was a lot of confusion and fight, but he still survived and then continued a second term. After even his second term, the guy was still orchestrating not to allow the rotation that everybody had agreed on to continue. And that led to a very big fight. And unfortunately, the Pan-African Parliament activity had to be suspended for almost 2 years. Then, during the COVID, we managed to try to convert. Still, there were we couldn't make progress until this very meeting, when almost all the regional zones had to be invited to Addis Ababa, talk to, some arrangement done, some understanding reached. Even with that, you have people whose countries are under coup d'etat still wanting to come and contest. And it created a lot of problems for us. But thank God, on this very day, the June 27th, 2022, we were able to weather the storm and have been able to constitute a new bureau that started working very effectively. Mr. Speaker, I believe that Africa, we have a big challenge. We have very nice slogans. You go to Pan-African Parliament, it is boldly written there, I am because you are. But our activities and behavior doesn't portray I am because you are. It's as if everybody is for himself and everybody is struggling for himself. I hope that with these new executives, we will continue to give the very best to the African continent and to be able to salvage the African people from all the challenges that confront them, which is across Africa, poverty and all the challenges. I can see, Mr. Speaker, I want to make a plea before I take my seat. Don't allow Eric Opoku to contribute to this because he has told me clearly what he intends to say. And I don't want it to be captured, so don't call him, because he wants to say that most of the confusion that were being there, I was orchestrating. I don't have hand in them. I don't have hand in them. So, Mr. Speaker, with this comment, I second the motion, and I hope members will contribute. Mr. Speaker, that was on a lighter note. Members will contribute positively to keep encouraging the African Parliament to give out its very best. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Majority Chief Whip.
Speaker, I'm grateful. I rise to speak in support of the motion. Speaker, let me start on a note of commending the African Union. If you listen to the story as being told and the narrative, you cannot help but come to the conclusion that the African Union played a very vital role in resolving the impasse that plagued the PAP for all these while. Again, Speaker, the delegation from Ghana's Parliament needs to be led by our respected First Deputy Speaker, needs to be commended for staying on course, believing in certain democratic principles, and also pushing it and ensuring that these principles are respected and enforced. Various caucus leaders also played a very important role in the consultation that led to the resolution. As we are, let me say that we're fortunate that our own minority chief whip was eventually elected as the chair. He now chairs, and I don't know why he didn't speak to that, whether he's trying to hide it from members. He was elected as the chair of the Finance Committee. So his position has changed. And it comes with other essentials, and my colleague knows.
So don't tax people. No more chief tax.
And to be fair, I led the ad hoc committee that helped in conducting the elections. So we played a very good role and represented our country well. Not to belabor the point, just to conclude on the note that largely the PAP has remained consultative body. Going forward, the vision as was espoused by the founders, basically as a parliamentary body, is to ensure that the legislative function of that body cannot be toyed with or undermined. So moving forward, we should move beyond the consultative state and be able to define our legislative powers. For me, that is critical, and it's something that has been outstanding for a very long time. Having said this, I want to commend the African Union and commend the delegation for a very good role play in ensuring that, again, PAP is on the route to regain its lost glory. Having said this, I support the motion fully and urge members to help in the adoption of this report. Speaker, I'm grateful.
Very well. Honorable Eric Opoku, I'm interested in you. So let me hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the leadership of my side has asked me not to make a comment on this statement. And therefore, it would not be appropriate for me to grossly disrespect the leadership of my side. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want to make a comment. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Hansard has just heard something. And for emphasis, I just want to find out whether Mr. Erikopoku intended what he said to be captured by Hansard and posterity. That we have the report of PAC. Our representatives who have gone to the Pan-African Parliament, they have come with a report that as a parliamentarian you are free to express your views on. Mr. Speaker, you are saying your leadership, they have gagged you. Mr. Speaker, look at what happened yesterday. Mr. Speaker, our side had an opportunity to express their views on matters of national concern. We didn't gag them. We encouraged them to get on board so that we work together for the betterment of democracy. And the NDC leadership, led by Honorable Haruna Idrisu, Today, a senior member of the NDC is saying that on a harmless report like this, he's being gagged. Really. And therefore, you are in humility, saying that you won't comment even when Mr. Speaker has called you. Really. So between NDC and MPP, where is democracy being practiced? Mr. Speaker, our side, there was turbulence yesterday. We took it easy. Yes, but it will be over. It will be over. But you are afraid. Why are you not allowing him to speak? The man is afraid to speak. Else during his primaries, you may kick him out. He's afraid. Or you as a chief whip, you may even deny him his status in a committee. Why is he afraid? And Poko, as we know, a consummate politician, is now afraid to speak. Okay. Hansard has said you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Pokuku, you said you have no comment, so I wouldn't give you the opportunity. Let me come to.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to correct an erroneous impression made by our colleague that I'm afraid to speak. Mr. Speaker, I'm not afraid. Democracy means respect for law. I'm a member of a caucus, and the caucus has taken a position that these are the people who are supposed to speak on this matter. And that is why I'm declining not to make a comment on this one. But when the opportunity comes for other people or me to speak on another thing, Mr. Speaker, I will do that. I'm not afraid. I'll be speaking on the floor always.
Let me come to minority leader. Mr. Speaker, you wanted to.
I thought he had finished.
So I want Honorable Helena to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to the adoption of the report. We have a proud delegation led by the First Deputy Speaker, accompanied by the whips to the Pan-African Parliament. But, Mr. Speaker, there are significant issues from this committee's report that our Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs must take particular notes so that the African heads of state, when they meet again, they will discuss the matter of the Pan-African Parliament, retake a position on the Pan-African Parliament and what purpose we want it to serve. It does not appear that we are learning lessons very fast, particularly from the EU Parliament, and what the EU Parliament can do and cannot do. If you compare it to our Pan-African Parliament, we still will appear like a toddler nurturing a democratic institution of a Pan-African Parliament. Mr. Speaker, so the EU Parliament must guide African heads of state as to what they should do. My only other observations, Mr. Speaker, is to refer you to paragraph 3 of the committee's report, and I'm not particularly the second line, those words there. It is well known that parliaments throughout the world are important places for debates. Then the words there, and confrontation of ideas. I have a difficulty with the committee clerk when you say confrontation of ideas, but I don't know, leader of delegation, what he means by that. And I could go on even to the text. There's one other correction that I'll draw, Mr. Speaker, your report to. Then paragraph 4.5, contextually, and this to guide our clerks when they are working, we expect more diligence from them. When you start a sentence with, he indicated that at this turning point in the history of the continent, it seemed to him more relevant to stick to the essentials. You see, context-wise, I'm struggling to see what they are conveying. That's my observation. I don't see the relationship with other paragraphs. I'm sure they want to convey a certain major decision, but I don't seem to get it. Now, Mr. Speaker, to refer you to paragraph page 4, He said it was indeed regrettable that the protocol establishing the rotation had not yet come into force due to lack of sufficient number of ratifications. So, Mr. Speaker, as I said, who is to do the ratification? Who is to facilitate the ratification in other countries? We know here we will have to get the other African heads of state to make a commitment to ratify so that the Pan-African Parliament can take its pride of place. Then finally, Mr. Speaker, as I said, I just noticed another innocuous correction in the committee. Yes, page 8, the second line. I'm sure it's just a typo, but for purpose of record, appeal to members to rebrand. The rebrand there is not properly done. It should be done properly. But Mr. Speaker, generally to commend our delegation, First Deputy and his team, but I think that we must redefine what the Pan-African Parliament must do, and African heads of state must take interest in it and model it along the lines of the EU Parliament. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Honorable Speaker, can you conclude and probably,
I want to thank
if you can,
honorable members who
address some of the issues raised by the minority leader?
Well, the real issue he has raised is about what the heads of state wish the Parliament of Pan-Africa to be. Indeed, it's a matter which has engaged the attention of members of the Pan-African Parliament itself, and there are moves to ensure that we move it from the Pan-African Parliament from being just an advisory organ to a legislative organ. But indeed, I recall in 2013, 2014, the Speaker was the chair of the Constitutional and Legal Committee and was the ranking member. We were heavily guided by the model right to information bill prepared by the Pan-African Parliament when we were working on the right to information bill. So the Pan-African Parliament does some of these things to guide parliaments in all Africa so that we could use what they do as a guide in domesticating what the state parliaments or national parliaments may do. The Speaker, having said that, I thank members who have contributed. I noticed that Honorable Minority Chief Whip has left, so I won't tell anybody what he did in the elections. If you were here, I would have said it, but now that he's not here, how he managed to make sure the election was not held so that we can go and come back and, he did very well in that respect. But I'll not give the details to anybody on the floor. Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I thank members for contributing to the debate of the reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the question is, all those in favor of the report, say aye. All those against the motion, say no. It's obvious the ayes have it. The motion is hereby adopted. Yes, leadership.
Speaker, we are ready for item 7. Item 7 on page 2.
Honorable members, may I invite you to page 2. Page 2, item listed 7. Motion by the chairman of the delegation to West Ecowas. Yes.
If Mr. Speaker will be pleased, I rise to move the House to adopt the report of Ghana's representatives to the Ecowas Parliament on the first ordinary session of the Ecowas Parliament held in Abuja, Nigeria from 9 June to 2nd July 2022. Mr. Speaker, I move in terms of the report as advertised and rely on the entire content of the report without more. Whilst I did, Mr. Speaker, I also, with your leave, pray, answered to capture the entire report as though same was read by me viva voce in extenso, whilst I highlight some few points. Mr. Speaker, it became clear from the various country reports that COVID had really affected the economies in the sub-region. Again, insecurity was also high on the agenda, that various heads of states have become concerned about security situation in their countries. Mr. Speaker, at the session, we had the privilege of being addressed by various institutional heads within the sub-region. Mr. Speaker, a message was delivered by the Vice President of ECOWAS Commission. We had a message delivered by the Vice President of ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development. The ECOWAS Vice President of the Court of Justice was also with us with a goodwill message. Mr. Speaker, the Vice President of the National Assembly of Senegal also delivered a message to us, as well as the Right Honourable Speaker Fabakary Tombon Jatta of the National Assembly of the Gambia. Mr. Speaker, the plenary was well attended and the Speaker took his chair. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of agriculture in the sub-region, the Committee of Parliament responsible for agriculture re-echoed the views of the ECOWAS Commissioner for Agriculture that there's a need in this crisis we find ourselves for us to invest more in agriculture to make food available to our people, as that is the surest way of keeping our economy on course. And this is a point that we would want to re-echo for all parliamentarians to also take up. Mr. Speaker, having said this, I shall pray that the report as presented to the House be adopted I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable members, the motion has been moved. Yes, Honourable Member for South Dai.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Speaker, I rise to second the motion to adopt the report of our representatives to the Ecowas Parliament. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, may I add a few words? Mr. Speaker, in reading the report, particularly if you focus on the messages delivered by the key institutions constituting the Ecowas as reported herein, especially under the report delivered by the Vice President of the Ecowas Court of Justice, the Honourable Justice Beribe Utara. Mr. Speaker, The Honorable Justice, for instance, said that page 8, paragraph 3 of his report. He has this to say. He says that even though the court is as old as 20 years as an institution of the Ecowas Parliament, only a few countries or only a few citizens within Ecowas have some knowledge about the workings of the court. And he also reported to the Ecowas Parliament that oftentimes it's come to the attention that the decisions of the court are rejected, are not enforced by the member countries that constitute the Ecowas. And Mr. Speaker, this is worrying, and I want to have the attention of the leader of the Ecowas delegation, especially because when we expend money and resources to constitute such an important institution within the Ecowas as a region, it's important that their decisions, being decisions of a court of law, are recognized and enforced by the member countries. That is the only way the authority of the court can be properly established. Mr. Speaker, may I also refer to some portions of the report submitted by the Commissioner for Agriculture, Environment and Water Resources. Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner in reporting to the Ecowas Plenary, he has this to say. For instance, under the Regional Fund for Agriculture and Food, which was established as far back as 2011, Mr. Speaker, that fund is yet to be operationalized. 11 years after it was established. We are now putting structures in place to, as it were, even receive donations or contributions from member states, so we can in turn give to our farmers from our member states for them to be able to benefit and apply them in their various agricultural activities. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very important matter that should engage the attention of this House. We cannot adopt such a lethargic approach to institutionalizing entities such as this. We established a fund 11 years ago, and we are unable to operationalize it. It means that as Ecowas, we don't appear to be addressing the issues affecting our agri sector seriously. And as a House, we need to take note. Mr. Speaker, under the same report, again, the Commissioner reported that under the resilience of food systems, food and nutrition security, the Ecowas Regional Storage Strategy, which was adopted as far back as 2015, is also yet to be operationalized. And it is a problem. If our food storage strategy adopted 2015, about 7 years ago, we are yet to operationalize it, it means we are paying lip service to a lot of the institutional reforms we seek to introduce at the Ecowas parastatal level. Mr. Speaker, the last point I want to touch on under that contribution is about the uniformity or synchronization of the use of water resources within the Ecowas sub-region. Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you or address the House on this matter, the Bagri Dam has been opened, and it's had a devastating effect on our farmers, particularly downstream of the dam. The net effect, Mr. Speaker, is that for the first time in 14 years, the Volta Lake is at its brink, and the VRA has just put out a notice that within the next 11 days, they will be spilling both excess water from the Kosombo Dam and the Kong Dam. Mr. Speaker, what this means is that when the spillage occurs, persons downstream of these two dams we may have to marshal up some emergency preparedness so that those who will be affected by the spillage can be attended to. Mr. Speaker, finally, the forum also received some information from the West African Bar Association, which is a group of lawyers within West Africa. And Mr. Speaker, as part of the issues that they touched on are clearly matters bordering on human rights and abuse of human rights. And why it's important that as a grouping, as Ecowas as an entity, we need to pay attention to some of these developments. Mr. Speaker, let me assume my seat by quoting what the West African Bar Association said on this matter. Mr. Speaker, they said at page 23, they said that in West Africa, owing to various military insurgents, WABA has underlined some protocol and democracy and good governance structures and provides for an accountability framework for the governance of its structures. It aims to ensure free, fair, and credible elections as the basis for legitimate government. However, their further observation is that the re-emergence of military coups in West Africa is a threat to the sustainability of our democratic credentials as a people within the sub-region. And the various national assemblies are being called upon to pay attention to address some of the fundamental reasons why there is this new emergence of the military dictatorship within West Africa. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I thank you for the opportunity.
Very well. Yeah, Eric Opoku. At this time, you will speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to comment on the
Honourable members, please.
From our colleagues representing us in the Ecowas Parliament. Mr. Speaker, point 8.4, page 17. The report talks about agricultural productivity and competitiveness. But Mr. Speaker, the name of the commissioner is not Mr. Sekou Sangri. The name is Mr. Sekou Sangari. So if the chairman can look at it and then do the correction. It's Sekou Sangari. Sekou Sangari is the Ecowas commissioner.
Honourable Deputy Leader, please listen to his comment. I'm drawing your attention to his comment that he's making.
And so, the delegation who is reporting to us, you look at the name, it's not Sangri, it's Sangari. He is the commissioner in charge of agriculture. And Mr. Speaker, I recall that in 2018 we needed support from Ecowas. Sekou Sangari was the one who came down here to offer us the assistance that we needed at the time. Because most importantly, I'm interested in the effort being made by Ecowas to ensure that we have enough supply of fertilizer across the region as part of the measures to increase food production and to ensure food security in the sub region. It is very, very important. And then also, they also talk about the project to increase rice production in the sub region. Mr. Speaker, this is very, very important. And they are looking at how we can link efforts, how we can come together, strategize as a region to increase rice production in the Ecowas countries. Mr. Speaker, we spend so much to import rice to supplement local production. And so it is in the right direction. Ecowas come together to join hands in ensuring that we produce enough rice to feed our people and even export to make some foreign earnings. But Mr. Speaker, there is very, very important point which has been made at page 33, which policymakers in our country must take note of and prepare accordingly. Mr. Speaker, page 33 states that some countries within the Ecowas region have experienced low harvest in terms of their agricultural production. And as a result of this, they have written to the Ecowas strategic stores for support. So as we speak, Ecowas is reporting to us that they have depleted all their reserves, that they don't have food available now to support any country in need, because most of our countries suffered this situation because of the dry season, long dry seasons, because of the climate change, because of insecurities. They don't have food and they have to fall on ECOWAS strategic stores. And so they are telling us that as we speak, they don't have food kept anywhere to support any other country that may be in need. This is very important information for Ghana. As we prepare, we must know that should in case of any difficulties, ECOWAS will not be able to come to our aid, and therefore we should be preparing now. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we know that we don't have a single grain of cereals stored anywhere in the country for us to depend on in terms of emergencies. And so if ECOWAS is giving us indication that they have depleted their resources, then we must know how to prepare accordingly. And then in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, the President intimated that with the world food crisis and the Ukraine-Russia situation, some countries do not want to export. This is what the President is telling us, that apart from the fact that ECOWAS have depleted their food reserves, even in the international scene, some countries are not willing to export because of the Russia-Ukraine situation. The Commission is therefore working with other partners through existing mechanisms to be able to address this emergency situation. So there is no hope from the world that we are going to get food should we have emergency. In the region, ECOWAS, no food anywhere. So Ghana as a country must prepare against emergencies. My worry is that as a country, we have not put in place enough mechanisms. We don't have buffers. So in case of any emergency, the whole country will suffer. So once this has come to the attention of the House, the policymakers, Ministry of Agriculture, the government must take notice, serious notice of this and prepare accordingly. Because in 2018, we had a challenge. In spite of planting for food and all the things that we said, and ECOWAS bailed us out. Today, ECOWAS is telling us that they don't have anything to support any other country. And they are also saying that countries who have do not want to export because they don't know when the Ukraine-Russia war is going to end. This means that we should domesticate our plants and prepare here. Mr. Speaker, this is very, very important because if anything happens and there's no food, you shouldn't say that we didn't tell you. You reported to us and we are commenting on it. It's very, very important. Don't tell me to stop. It's important. Then also, Mr. Speaker, on page 35, page 35, they are also talking about insecurity in the sub-region. And Mr. Speaker, the most important thing for all of us to do is to look at what the triggers of insecurity in the sub-region are? What are the triggers? Poverty levels, high inequalities, corruption, and other issues that deprive the citizenry of their basic necessities. Mr. Speaker, if you create an atmosphere where the chunk of the resources meant for the good of the entire citizenry is given to few people, is found with just few, you widen the inequality, you create an atmosphere of insecurity. And therefore, in order to address the challenge of insecurity, we have to come together, implement proper policies, and ensure that the gap between the rich and the poor is closed, so that every citizen on our continent can have a life. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Okay, let me give the last law to you.
I'm most grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion. I commend the leader of the delegation for the presentation of the Ecowas report. Mr. Speaker, I note from page 4 of the report that the delegation is particularly concerned about the deteriorating democratic situation in the sub-region and has pointed to a very, very important mechanism to address the deterioration. That is what it describes as a more proactive approach in handling the democratic deterioration. Mr. Speaker, this point has been made very eloquently by my colleague who just spoke, the Honorable Eric Opoku. The proactive measures that will prevent the democratic deterioration, the instability that is rearing its ugly head again. We have seen a return to the era of coups when we thought that coups were matters of the past. We've seen what happened in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Guinea, and then Burkina Faso again, only a few weeks ago. These proactive measures, Mr. Speaker, will definitely be the need for ECOWAS leaders to hold their peers accountable to the dictates of good governance, to ensure that economic opportunities are created for their country, to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the matters to do with corruption, with lack of inclusivity, and this abuse of the democratic process where term limits are taken away and leaders want to perpetuate themselves in office. We all know the precipitating factors. And the challenge has been that it appears that ECOWAS leaders are quite silent when these matters are unfolding, when these very negative tendencies are being rolled out by these despots. We only hear ECOWAS leaders impose sanctions when the die is cast, when the horses have bolted, and when these coups have happened, and the sanctions clearly are not working. We see the tough times that Ibn Chambers is having we see, Mr.
Members,
Speaker.
please, let's listen to the contribution. Yes, Honourable Member, let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, I was making the point about how when these coups have occurred, we see that the transitional arrangements are not even followed. And going through the reports, you read that our own Ibn Chambers is having a tough time trying to get the military junta in Guinea to follow the ECOWAS transitional timetable. We see Goodluck Jonathan also facing the same challenge. I mean, Mr. Speaker, the point cannot be overemphasized. that a new model is needed, where ECOWAS leaders will need to persuade their colleagues to just follow the dictates of good governance to make sure that the economic dividend is felt by all. It seems to be the only way forward, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, having talked about the democratic deterioration, the committee's report, the delegation's report, also draws our attention to a number of challenges with the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Mr. Speaker, you know that we host the Secretariat, and it is really unfortunate that as we speak, there are 3 ECOWAS countries that have not yet ratified. All experts agree that this is a game changer for industrialization in the sub-region. And I will add my voice to the need for all ECOWAS member states to ratify the AFTA agreement and ensure that all of our countries in the sub-region participate fully in this game changer, which will create jobs and will see to the industrialization of Africa. So we renew the call for Benin, Liberia, and Guinea-Bissau to ratify the AFTA agreements so that they can be part of this important trade market, which potentially is bigger than the WTO. As I round up, Mr. Speaker, I would also like to point to some key economic indicators contained in the report. The ECO target, we are told that the new launch date is in 2027, and yet we know that a lot of economies in the sub-region are really facing difficulties. I see that the issue of inflation has been highlighted. We now have an average of inflation of 13.6%, as contained at page 31 of the delegation's report. This is a potent threat to the rollout of ECO, and if care is not taken, the 2027 launch date will be missed again, just like the earlier launch dates were missed. But, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that a few countries are doing well economically, and we need to learn from them. We need to find out what they are doing. For example, the debt to GDP ratio.
Honourable members, please, the noise is too much. Please, please. Yes, let's hear.
So, Mr. Speaker, the countries that are doing well, that have a low debt to GDP ratio, as we see at page 31 of the report, there is an opportunity for countries like Ghana that is having challenges with that. Now that the World Bank is reporting that we are on the verge of exceeding 100%, we need to share ideas and exchange, experiences to see how we can adapt some of the strategies that countries that are doing well in some of these indicators, what are their secrets, so that we can also learn from them, as they also learn from us in other indicators that we are doing better than. But, Mr. Speaker, I'll be remiss if I do not emphasize the fact that the ECOWAS Parliament, as it is now, just like the Pan-African Parliament and all the regional parliaments, Mr. Speaker, remain delegations of parliaments from member countries. The original idea, which has not been abandoned and which many of our citizens look forward to, is universal adult suffrage, where all adults, all the electorate of these countries can participate in direct elections of our members of parliament in this ECOWAS Parliament and then in the Pan-African Parliament. So full integration, that has not yet been achieved. And the dream of continental African unity, the United African States, as was originally envisioned by the Osagifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Mr. Speaker, on an occasion like this, we should be reminded of those ideals, that these are just steps, building blocks to what really should be, what the destination is. We are not there yet, and we need to quicken up and hasten the process to getting to that final political entity, which is true unity, true integration that abolishes all of these artificial boundaries. I conclude, Mr. Speaker, by wishing the 3 countries that will be holding elections next year, Nigeria, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, the very best. They will be following up from Gambia. Gambia has held very peaceful, successful elections, having transitioned for the first time since strongman Yahya Jammeh was forced out of power. And, Mr. Speaker, we must change that narrative that the Ecowas sub-region is the headquarters of coups and political instability. We wish Nigeria, Liberia, and Sierra Leone the very best, and we hope that the 3 other countries that have had a democratic setback, Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso, will quickly transition and bring back democratic order, and let us all work towards the dream of real integrated continental unity. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate, all those in favour of the motion say aye. All those against say no. Honourable members, the ayes have it. The motion is hereby adopted. Yes, leadership.
Speaker, I guess we've assessed that all the items as agreed are complete. So I'll move the House to adjourn to tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the forenoon.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion for adjournment.
Honourable members, the motion for adjournment has been moved and seconded. The question is, all those in favour of the adjournment say aye. All those against say no. Honourable members, the ayes have it. The motion for adjournment is hereby adopted. The House is accordingly adjourned to tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House stands adjourned.